I'm standing in wet gravel at 5:43 a.m. coffee, cooling in my hand, watching smoke bleed through the ribs of what used to be my grandfather's corn barn. Cedar beams hissing the air, tasting like burned syrup and diesel. And I know in my bones, someone did this on purpose. My name's Sam Harlan. I spent 26 years handing down sentences in federal court, and the last couple learning sweet corn and silence out on 42 acres near Sycamore Springs, Nebraska, a place where wind carries the smell of cut hay, and you can hear yourself think. Then a woman with a clipboard and a perfect smile decided my barn was an eyesore, heels ticking up my drive like a metronome. Mr. Harlan. She says I'm Victoria Langford, HOA president. We need to discuss your agricultural structures, and I wipe grease off my hands because the old John Deere finally coughed back to life, and I'm proud of that, Sam. My barn's older than your subdivision. This is agricultural land. Your covenants stop at that white fence, and she smiles. The smile people use when they think you're cute and wrong. Property values live or die on aesthetics. We can be creative when a neighbor refuses to be cooperative. And that word, creative, lands like a courtroom whisper when you know something dirty is coming. A week later, a county pickup rattles up, kid climbs out, clutching a clipboard like a shield. Ethan. We received complaints. Noise dust. Rodents. Environmental concerns. Voice, shrinking as he flips pages. There were 14 this week. And I look at his hands shaking and switch on the voice. I used to keep a courtroom from eating itself, Ethan. Right to farm protects operations like mine. That were here before suburbia, most of that is nuisance, smoke bombs, document the truth and you'll be fine. He swallows, shows me a voicemail transcript. The Harlan situation requires immediate comprehensive attention. We value cooperative officials. You hear a dog whistle long enough. You don't need the dog. That night at 8:49 on the dot, Victoria calls frost in her tone. I understand you're interfering with legitimate enforcement. I'm documenting abusive process, I tell her. And she laughs, brittle and expensive. Difficult neighbors often discover their problems multiply. So I hang up and open Maggie's old recipe folder and start a new ledger, because a good case is built like a fence. Strong posts, tight wire, every staple hammered in, date, time, threat caller. A lawsuit arrives describing my barn as a public danger attracting vermin vagrants and, I swear to you, potential terrorist concealment, yeah. That happened letterhead from an out-of-town firm charging more per hour than my dad made in a month. So I go pull deeds at the recorder's office until my fingers smell like paper, and I find 20 months of quiet acquisitions by shell companies. Everyone tied to Langford Development Partners, an address that matches the construction company her husband runs, and the picture clicks into focus. My 42 acres are the missing puzzle piece for another couple hundred houses and a shiny retail strip. I call my former clerk, Jordan Patel, sharp civil rights lawyer who learned to sharpen arguments in my courtroom, and an old contact agent, Dana Morales, who runs quiet, but thinks loud. And I don't ask for favors. I lay out 14 complaints. Pressure on a code officer, a fairy tale lawsuit, a chain of shells. And Jordan files to dismiss for lack of standing, and adds a federal civil rights action that makes public officials personally responsible when they abuse power under color of law. While Dana says she's been hearing the same story across rural counties. Anonymous complaints, phony violations, distress, sales into developer fronts. And my case makes her voice go still. I'm opening a file. The week turns mean power drops at 2:11 a.m. Tuesday, again. Thursday. Saturday. Monday, never for the subdivision. My water pressure trickles. While across the road, lawns look ready for the World Series, and a letter runs in the local paper. From a concerned neighbor calling me a paranoid recluse with suspicious stockpiles. I read it on the porch while the generator hums, and the fall air tastes like apple skins then. I check my infrared camera, and at 2:08 a.m., a white SUV crawls past my gate with a vanity plate crisp as a courtroom sketch. HOA 1. You know what I mean. I drive through the subdivision later, and a young dad pushing a stroller catches me by the pocket park. Looks over his shoulder like he's cheating at cards. You're the farm guy, right? I'm Luis, thank you for not rolling over his hands. Shake more from nerves than wind. She fined us $80 for a basketball hoop after sunset. Cited my wife for chalk drawings on the sidewalk, told us patriotic flags are politically divisive. You kept the notices, I ask, and he gives me the tired laugh of a man who keeps receipts. Box of them, and that night my phone burns. Miss Klein, a widow, fined for hanging laundry array, an army vet, cited whenever his motorcycle touches his own driveway. Emily, single mom, threatened with social services over dandelions. After a rainy week, fear makes people quiet. But fear cracks when someone finally names the thing that's been sitting on your chest. The smell of smoke wakes me at 3:03 a.m., that primitive alarm bell you feel before you understand it. And the window shows orange, where the barn should be. A bloom hot enough to flatten the night for 1 second. I'm 12, listening to my grandfather Daniel tell how a storm took half the roof and how you fix anything one board at a time. I call 911 then. Dana, then Jordan. And the words come calm. Federal arson, tied to an intimidation pattern. Sabotage history. Camera footage of the plate. Trolling my fence after midnight. And Dana says, don't touch a thing. Jordan says, we're expanding the suit, and the insurer will learn the phrase, bad faith. And by dawn, there's coffee on the stove, and county filings on my table, and buried in the HOA paperwork. I find a rotten tooth, a clause granting first right of refusal on any non-conforming property within 3 miles at 55% of assessed value. Creative right. I also find that Victoria holds a fat position in a regional development company, with purchase options on the parcels her board keeps noticing. Motive, drawn in ink. And by afternoon, Dana arrives with 2 agents and a stack of boxes that smell like toner. We're wiring your place, she says. If they get cute, we want it in high fidelity. And Jordan rolls in with a team that talks in bullet points and gets calmer as the wall of evidence gets taller, and the neighbors keep calling until we have a community hall booked under a fake bake sale, and 41 families lay violations on folding tables like trading cards. We log 108 fines in 3 years. Average $300. But it's the stories that weigh the most, not rules humiliation as a business model. Tuesday at 10 a.m., Victoria knocks with a county commissioner named Hargrave, who wears a suit like a threat. We can put this behind us, she says, slides an offer across my kitchen table. $400,000 cash. 30-day. Close no inspection, a number that's maybe a third of fair. Hargrave leans in with peppermint breath off the record. Keeping this dispute alive could invite administrative complications, assessments, environmental reviews. Very thorough, and I pour coffee while the recorder hidden in the light fixture purrs. And if I accept, I ask, and Victoria's smile tightens. Your legal issues of the suit. The fire claim resolved quietly. We know how to solve community problems when neighbors work together, yeah. They offered to obstruct justice in my kitchen while admiring my wife's curtains. I let them talk 20 more minutes. Who's on board, which inspectors are reasonable, which judges are understanding. By the time they leave, the wire has a bow on it. Trouble is, a snake's head will thrash once you cut it. Luis calls panicked. His nurse wife is laid off in a budget cut that hits exactly one person. Mrs. Klein gets a condemnation notice on steps she's walked for 30 years, signed by an inspector who later admits he never visited HOA. HOA is arrested for public intoxication in his own driveway. With an unopened soda in his hand, the deputy apologizes later and says he was ordered to find a reason. And somewhere in there, a doctored audio clip surfaces, trying to paint me unfit. Dana's texts, shredded in an afternoon, and follow the payment to a Langford LLC. The spin doesn't just die, it boomerangs. We decide to end it where it started, in the open, and the monthly HOA meeting packs the community center, way past code. Phones up like lighters. Victoria in navy with a courtroom email taps the mic before the agenda. I want to address a campaign of harassment by individuals who refuse to respect standards, and the murmur isn't hers anymore. I stand. I'd like to respond, she says. During comments, and Donna stands in the second row, sag steady. He can speak now. This is a federal evidence session, and if you've never heard a room inhale in one breath, it sounds like a tide turning. I walk to the podium with a folder thick enough to stop a 22 and say I spent a lot of years sending people to prison after they forgot public office is a job, not a crown, 3 months ago. An HOA president tried to make my farm unlivable so her friends could buy it cheap. She used county resources to do it. She used fear to keep you quiet tonight. I'll show where your fines went, and we put a simple diagram on the screen. Violations on one side, shell companies, and options on the other. Victoria's name threaded through every box. I play the kitchen recording. The cash offer, the promise to make my legal problems disappear. The peppermint voice promising understanding. Then I step aside, and Dana says the words, clean and final. Victoria Langford. You're under arrest for conspiracy, wire fraud, obstruction, and violation of rights under color of law. Hargrave tries the side door. An agent by the fire extinguisher shakes his head, and the loudest sound isn't applause. It's a widow whispering finally. Aftermath isn't splashy, it's practical. Plea deals bloom once people realize the wire is good and the paper trail is real. Victoria takes 12 years. Hargrave gets 8. A dozen officials and business owners learned that small lies stack into big crimes. The development company writes checks that build sidewalks, lights. A park funds a scholarship named for teachers and EMTs instead of donors, and a new board puts in term limits, open meetings, an independent officer to investigate complaints. Luis runs community events and hangs a flag with a grin that looks like air returning to lungs. Mrs. Klein hosts a laundry line day every June. Kids sprint between sheets while grown-ups remember how to be neighbors. We rebuilt the barn, not a museum, a working promise. Amish craftsmen showed veterans how to raise a frame like a prayer. Every hammer swing a heartbeat, and one bay became a legal clinic once a week. Folks bring letter and threats, and we teach them to build fences out of paper. 200 families helped this year, and that number makes me prouder than any opinion I ever signed. If you want a neat ending, you won't get one, Because last week a reporter from Cedar Hill messaged about a mayor who thinks a veterans memorial would look better next to a donor's restaurant. He's betting the names are old and the families are tired. I texted back, or words, "Send me the details." And maybe that bothers you. Maybe a man my age should sit on a porch and let younger backs carry the wood. Some days I think that too. Then I drive past the new barn and remember why my grandfather built the first one. Not for a building, for a belief. Land remembers the hands that care for it. Communities do too. If you've lived a version of this, a board that forgot it serves a neighbor who turned petty into policy, a system that thought you were small. Hear me document everything. Find your Luis. Find your Mrs. Klein tell the truth until it's heavier than there. Lies don't threaten. Don't vandalize. Don't match their worst. With your worst, build the fence, tight wire. Strong posts, and when the time comes, show your receipts. Now tell me in the comments, are HOAs necessary? Guardrails or power trips waiting to happen? Where's the line between protecting a neighborhood and policing people into silence? Is burning a barn just arson or an attack on history? You agree with how this ended or think I went too far? You know what I mean? Speak your piece. Subscribe if you felt that little jolt of justice. Share this with the neighbor who thinks they're alone. And if you've got a story, I'm listening.